wonderful show. And if you are coming to us from around the world, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today we have an amazing show of camp professionals from around the world answering your burning questions. Before we start, I'd like to just get us a little bit oriented and I'd like to find out where you're from. So if you could head over to the chat and share with us where are you from around the world? Give us a little hello, say hi to your friends, just give a nice warm welcoming in our chat there just to get us going this morning. And some good to knows, please put yourself on mute while the presentation is happening. If you have any questions, please use the chat. And for your viewing purposes, it's probably best to put on speaker mode. Then whatever we're presenting is going to be nice and big and bold for you. We're going to be together today for about 90-ish minutes, so please take your breaks when you need to take your breaks. This is for you, and we hope you're enjoying your time with us, whether it's while you're working, cooking, doing dishes, taking the dog for a walk, or getting your kids ready for bed. We're just grateful to have you here today with us. So, what are we going to be chatting about? Well, in our presentation today, we have 5 burning questions. And in those questions, we have answered. So we have filmed people from around the world answering target market. A lot of us are trying to make sure we have as many climate clients as possible, but you might hear some very interesting information from our professionals about how to make sure your camp is full, but also you're being specific. Staff management is another hot topic. How do we manage and how do we support our staff in this current climate as well as this generation? Mental health is so important, not just for our staff, but also for our campers. And what are some camps doing today around the world to help support mental health? Second to last, connecting to nature. Not all of our camps are in nature, but those that are finding new and interesting ways to help campers who have never been part of, nature, everyday life, actually connect to it. And lastly, managing camper discomfort. We know that growth zone, can be a little bit uncomfortable, but if we're preparing our campers and our staff members well, it can be actually quite enjoyable. So after each video, we will be asking a question, so get ready to share in the chat, and let's just get ready for our first topic, which will be target your market.
How do you stop trying to be everything to everyone? How do you define your target market and keep the boundaries? In our particular camp setting, we've always really taken time every 4 or 5 years to stop and to take a step back and think about what we're doing in our camp. Right now, actually, a week away, we have a retreat. We're bringing together 52 members of our community, past staff members, some current staff members, and we're asking them to help define and redefine what our program experience is and what it should be. Some of these people haven't been involved in camp in years. They're educators, they're outdoor educators, they're doctors, they're professionals. And we're asking them, what are the different things we could and should be doing? Part of our focus now is doing more about outdoor education, evolving what school groups need. We're thinking about how to bring adults to our setting. What might our setting do for corporate groups? What might we do in terms of just looking at our space, our programs, and how we evolve those for a next generation of our young campers, our school groups, our adults?
When I think about camper management and I think about kids coming to camp and facing situations that they're not familiar with, I think of how Before a lot of people go to restaurants, they look up the menu online. Nobody just goes to a restaurant anymore and it just picks something off the menu. They've looked at the menu online before they go. And it's the same thing with camps. We have to explain to people what it is that they're going to experience before they experience it. We can't expect that they can show up and be prepared for the heat or the bugs or sleeping in cabins with other people. We need to preface all of that for them, whether it be showing them pictures, giving them a menu, all of that stuff ahead of time. And it helps with that anxiety that so many of our youth and our staff are experiencing now. So I always keep that in my mind of like, what is it that I look at before I go on vacation or to a restaurant? And then how can I provide that to our families and to our campers before they show up?
Around markets, it's been really interesting in Canada to think about the brand of camp. And many of us, for the past number of years, have been asking ourselves the question, where is it going and what are people's perceptions of what camp is? And what is the value proposition for camp? Why should I send my kids to camp? Today, there are so many options. In our own operation, for example, we're beginning to offer different lengths of program for older campers that are 15 and 16 years old, partially because of the sheer cost of being at camp for an extended period of time in the summer for families and trying to keep it accessible. But another challenge that we're finding is there is a multitude of things for young people to do. There is a lot of pressure to achieve. There's summer school, there's sports. There's a sense that if I'm not keeping up with a lot of skills over the summer, I'm somehow losing ground. So being at camp for the whole summer or for half a summer is now a risk for me that I'm going to miss out on a chance to play varsity sports or to develop other skills. Or maybe it's not me as a young person, maybe my parents feel that way. So being that much more articulate about how do we define camp versus being afraid of the word camp and somehow it has a connotation that maybe people don't understand. I think it's really helpful for us to then help people define it, help people understand what it is. And I think oftentimes what's old is new again. Families are looking for opportunities to build resilience, to bring kids into in-person connections away from screens, to help kids strike up conversations and learn how to be active IRL in real life. What we offer at camp, what we've always offered at camp, all of a sudden has a brand new resonance for a generation of people that really needs it. And I think if we can find a way to help communicate that, it can really be useful for parents when they're thinking about what camp might offer to their children.
As we are defining our target audience, I think it's important to recognize that simple things like adding an older age group can change the center of gravity, so to speak, of programs. So a camp that is focused primarily on younger children, when they add older programs, that's fantastic of being able to look at ways to challenge them and be age specific. And we also want to be aware of then if all of those groups are gathered together in the same room, that's going to change what the focal point is. And so the content or the activity may be less appropriate for the younger children by moving that anchor of the medium as a little bit older. So I think it's important to use the concept of dividing and thriving, where as we add things, we need to still look at how we can make sure that the focus is on the target audience. And it's okay to send children to other camps. It's okay to say our program's not the right one for you. Let me find the best one for you.
Camp Future Stars has been running summer camps, winter camps, and the weekend school programs for several years, over 3 decades. And almost 10 years ago, a private equity decided to invest in some programs, some companies in Turkey. And they approached us and they said they are interested in being a partner of Future Stars and then expand the business to other countries and also in Turkey. We were not prepared for such a big agreement, and we decided to hire 2 consultants. One was financial and the other one was the business consultant. And the financial consultant did his work a little bit, and then it was time for the business consultant parallel. And he decided to send surveys, questions to our clientele. The questionnaire was prepared and sent to 3,000 families. And 450 of them, which is 15%, replied in a couple of days. And they were surprised. They said, you have loyal clients and they respond very quickly. And then they checked the questions, but one question was very significant. And the question was, would you recommend Camp Future Stars to your friends and to your beloved ones? And 95% said yes. And while we were checking on the screen, and we were so proud and happy, and as a founder of the camp and spent all my life there, I was so happy. And the guy was not happy. I said, this is a problem. I said, what? Are you kidding? And the 95%. This friend, this consultant said that this is the fault. Usually the founders fall into, they become so much in love with their brands, with their products, so that they want to please everyone, customers, parents, the business, the providers, campers, staff, everyone, because they want to hear good things about their camp, their brand, their product. So that affects the profitability, and the profitability affects the sustainability, healthy sustainability, healthy growth. So they said, we need to check what you are spending in vain, like useless spendings that you want to make people extra happy or everyone happy. Maybe you are spending some amount of money just to make 3 people happy, which might, your satisfaction, your recommendation rate would drop to 90 or maybe 80. But between 80 and 95, there's a lot of margin that can be used for profitability and for sustainability and for doing other good things for more campers or more people, more staff. So we started digging in, and then we found that really we were doing a lot of things because only one parent demanded, why I want to do this. It is good to make everyone happy. I mean, okay, but business-wise, it wasn't. So one of the examples that they gave us was, think about the greatest, most known brands, Nike, Coca-Cola, or Apple, Samsung, Mercedes. I don't think their recommendation or satisfaction rate is 90%, 95%. So there's a small piece between optimization and making everyone happy. So this is my example that I would like to share with the camp community.
For us, it is very important to know what we are good at and what we are not good at. And for example, many schools ask us to do the parent and son camps, and that's something we do not do right, and we do not like or enjoy doing. So it is very important to learn how to say no when there are things that just don't feel right, and focus on those things that you feel confident doing.
How I approach not being everything to everyone is that specifically at Winona, we really focus on our why. And we kind of re-ask ourselves that question every year. Why are we doing this? What is our mission? And then everything that we do has to relate in some way back to the why that we have defined as our organization. And that's how we set a boundary with our families about what they can expect at Winona and what they might be better off searching elsewhere for. And I think that's a healthy way to kind of communicate to your parents what you're built to do and offer their families and their children, and what you might not be best suited for.
My concept of marketing would be just focus on being your best self, best camp. Some of the people who've worked for me in the past, when they arrive, they ask the question, who is our competition? And I'm like, we don't have competition. We do what we do. And when they offer the ideas of we should do high ropes or we should do canoe tripping, I was like, we should not. Because that's not where we do things best. And there's already camps who focus on those things and do them really well. And so for us, we focus a lot on leadership development. And with the marketplace, it's really important to make sure that we focus on exactly what we're able to do. We are not all things to everyone. And that is one of the keys, is that we are very much a community that focuses on giving campers the most amazing summer camp experience. I think it's a hugely valuable thing to realize that you can't be all things and that growth is not always possible, right? Sustainability is the goal, not to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
This is hearing so many different ideas, so many different ways of trying to hone in to what our target market is inspiring. I never thought of 75% is what you're aiming for satisfaction, and if you go higher, you might be losing money. So all of this information, so interesting. I'm interested to hear from everybody here. Has there been any programs that you have canceled or that you're thinking of canceling because you realized, you know what, it's just not for us? And I'll go first. Please share in the chat as I share. we had school groups for quite a few years. I have Kate Taylor that's here, and she also was part of that school group path. And we realized that though we did enjoy our school groups and we did enjoy the kids that we were working with, we realized that all of the energy and work that we put into our school group was really taking away from the work that we are doing with our campers. And it was Jeff Bradshaw that invited myself and Jackie Raill, my mother, to their camp, and they were doing women's weekends. And that seemed to fit with our philosophy and our mission so much more. And so we replaced our school groups with women's weekends, and it was a huge success. So again, there's camp sharing, and thank you to Jeff for that, and thank you to Kate for being in the trenches with me. Anybody that has things that that you decided we're getting rid of, we're not interested anymore, please share and comment. Next, we're going to be chatting about a fan favorite of mine, staff management. And if any of you have experienced somebody micromanaging you, you understand how it's really difficult to spread your wings. But as a leader, sometimes it feels like micromanagement is the only way to get what you need out of your staff. Take a listen to how these camp pros, go around micromanagement to really get the best out of their staff.
Camp people have different backgrounds. Some of them are from business life, corporate life. Some of them are from education background. And some, like me, have sports background. As a basketball player for a long time, what I learned from life is you don't make big changes during the game or tournament. I believe in training. I believe in focusing all details and preparing the players to the game. And when the game begins, there's a very little role of coach to make big differences. You can teach your players to do a new thing during the game, or you cannot take out a rabbit from the hat during the game. So it may happen once or twice, unexpected, very extraordinary occasions, but I believe in training and pre-season and pre-tournament training and preparations. This is what I learned from sports and from my coaches, and what I took to my camp business. The off-camp season is the most important part. You prepare your team, you think about all the details, you work on every details, and delegate it. Like a coach delegates the role to the players. Guarding, blocking, guarding the best scorer of the other team, something like it. So everybody knows their roles. What I do in my camp is I spend a lot of time before the season, before the camp begins, and I help them create all the vision. I help them visualize what could happen during the camp and be prepared when things are happening. So programming, getting ready for difficult times, visioning the crisis, visioning the risk management, everything is what I do during the off season. And when camps begin, I usually just watch from my door or while I'm outside. The things are going well. My team is playing as we planned, as we trained hard during the off season. That's why I think I almost never needed to do any kind of micromanagement during the camp. As a camp director, I only deal unexpected things like appendicit or extra weather changes, etc. Just simple things that I can be a part of the solution, but mostly I don't do anything. I just watch, and if they ask me something, if like a coach, if I see a tired player, I replace him with another one or do minor timeouts and just motivation, cheer up, change the tactic, sometimes put pressure, sometimes do the zone defense, just minor things, and then things go well. Personally, micromanagement, when after the camps begin, is nothing my thing, and I believe that most of the respected and experienced camp directors do this way. They are just watching the team that they prepared to the game.
Many of us are talking about the changing nature of our camp staff. There's lots of emerging research or bodies of knowledge about how young people are changing that are working at camp. I'm often finding in my work with camp that people are looking for more direction. They're needing to have more examples of what it is and how to do the job of a camp counselor. I recall when I was a young camp staff, what I wanted to be given was an afternoon free with my cabin group to just do whatever we could do. No structure. That's what I wanted. I'm not finding that that's the same that I'm experiencing with camp staff, that people are looking for more. And oftentimes to support this idea of around micromanaging, I'm finding myself needing to reflect back something that I learned very long ago as a staff member. Staff member would come to me and ask me a question around, what should I do in this particular situation? And instead of answering that question and falling into that micromanagement trap, I find myself saying, well, what options have you considered? And they will say, well, I haven't really thought of a bunch. It's like, well, let's think of a few. They don't have to be good. And usually in there somewhere, there's a really good one that maybe I didn't even have to think of myself. And it's a really interesting lesson for our young staff members to start to learn that within them, they actually have this resiliency or this creativity. And it's a really great benefit for us to be providing to them at camp. But also an interesting leadership skill that I didn't have to employ in the same way years ago that I feel like I need to now with our young staff members whose needs are changing.
When I think about micromanaging, I think it's a challenge because we do have the responsibility and we do want to make sure that the tasks and responsibilities we have given to different people are meeting the standard of care that we expect for our community. What I have found in working with university students is to be able to have checkpoints along the way. If I give them a task and then don't touch base with them prior to the task being finished, then it's uncomfortable for everybody because they may not have done it to the level that I was expecting, but they've already done it. So there's not time to intervene and work through it. So I think those touch points are what matter most, being able to have a discussion so they fully understand what is expected, and then ask them to brainstorm. What are the steps you're going to take to accomplish this? And what are the appropriate parts for you to report back to me so that I can give you feedback before you finish it? And that seems to give them a sense of ownership. It gives me creative ideas because I would not necessarily have thought of those same steps, but it also makes me part of the conversation rather than just the evaluator.
The idea of camp directors who micromanage, which is managers in general, people tend to have a hard time letting go. I, years ago, had this idea that what I want to do is create a yes person. So if you work for me, I want you to be able to say yes to anything that somebody asks without coming to me with the question. You're not going to be able to do it immediately, but the idea is that you have the opportunity to make decisions on your own once you know the decisions that I would make. So our summer leadership team is based around the idea that 99 times out of 100, are they going to make the same decisions that I would make as a camp director? And if the answer is yes, that's great. That's groupthink. My guest services person and my fundraising person, and I'm not always going to be present, or I'm out of the country at a conference, or I'm somewhere else, and I need them to be able to answer the questions and turn them into yes people where they can say things and give people things that seemingly are not always in a contract or not the ordinary. And letting go of always wanting to be present and always wanting to have the final say on something is the best way to get rid of micromanagement, because your people will leave you if you micromanage them. Whereas if you let them do their job, they're more likely to grow into that position and do it better.
In order to have the camping industry to be more sustainable, I think camp professionals need to initiate a process where campers and community will take ownership of camping activities. And how do we do that? The way we do it is by training more young people, giving them full responsibilities to initiate process that they can maintain, to encourage the community to get involved. When I talk about the community, I'm also talking about a broader level by bringing in governments around the world where these camping ministries are to give support to camping, because it has to do with educational program. Training people and giving them responsibility That's the way to take ownership instead of maybe just having some kind of micromanagement initiatives where whenever the professional leaves, programs die down. I don't think we want to see that happening. So we want ownership. We want community ownership into this process.
How I approach not micromanaging my staff as a camp professional, I always use the analogy of belaying someone on a high ropes course. So if I envision myself as their manager on the ground, keeping my two hands ready to catch them if they fall, but allowing them to decide what their next move is and their next foothold and handhold on the rock wall, they'll experience more pride when they get to the top of the wall, knowing that I was there to support them, but they really had the power of making all of their decisions in terms of their next move. If they fell, that I was going to be right behind them to catch them.
At our camp in Mexico, we have given the power to our staff to make decisions that are up to a certain amount of money. We're using a philosophy called the thank you economy. So if you guarantee that it's going to get you a thank you, you can make those decisions on your own without having to consult the management staff. And that has proven very, very beneficial because they know they have the power to do things they know are right. I just find out at the end of it that somebody did this or that without having to be involved in every single decision.
I worked for a person for many years who during the summer was very stressed and micromanaged many, many small tasks that didn't allow for her to see the bigger picture. During the winter, it was a completely different situation. When I became assistant director and director, I learned from that to understand that you need to listen to your staff, even your campers, to find solutions for problems that arise. Having been surrounded by young people for almost my whole career, I've grown to understand that you can't micromanage, you need to listen, whether they're 13 or 17 or been on your staff for 10 years. They have ideas and lots of solutions for problems that I couldn't always see. So that's what I enjoy and learn from, is trying to not micromanage.
As a camp leader, there are a few things that we do to help stop micromanaging at camp. I mean, there's no question you have to manage, you have to know what's going on. We have a lot of young people that are working, and there's a lot of responsibilities. So there is a level of management that has to happen, but I think for myself, it's a real cultural piece of the organization, and that starts from the very top right on down, and that is helping people feel responsible for what it is that they're doing, connected to the place, connected to the people, and an understanding that they have a real opportunity for positive impact. And in our organization, during a typical summer, our summer leadership team will meet once a day. There could be 15 of us, there could be 20 of us that meet every morning and talk about different issues that are on the table and things that we need to address. So we address things in an ongoing way. So we are always aware of what's going on, but we're not having to hover and micromanage over everybody while the summer is happening. We have designated periods of time where we talk to and have debrief chats with our staff, various check-in times to see how they're doing. I think the connect before you direct is such an important piece. So we really try to connect with our staff as people. And it's not a small group of staff. We have 140 staff in a typical summer at Camp Winona. And it takes a lot of work on our behalf to make sure that we can connect with everybody. But those connections really, I think, allow our staff to proceed and make good decisions with support and help, but not in a micromanaging kind of way. They really are afforded the opportunity to think big picture. And that starts with our training, and then it goes on throughout the whole summer. One of the things that it's a lot of work, but we like to do it, is when a summer is over, we connect with every single staff member once they're back at school or back in their lives, whatever it is they're doing, and we connect with them shortly after the summer. So we have a chance to have a one-on-one conversation with folks, which they can't get in the summertime to any great detail like we can post-summer. So that really, really helps with the connection piece and gives our staff a real sense of ownership over what it is they're doing at camp. So even though we are managing, it doesn't feel like to them they're being micromanaged. They really are given that opportunity to grow.
When you hear all of the wonderful things that our panelists were talking about, I feel very happy to be part of this community of people that care so much. And a lot of us come from people who cared about us. So in our chat, please share someone that was a positive mentor for you. And I bet they didn't micromanage. I bet they paved a path for you. So please share. You can share as many names as you would like to, but we'd love to give you an opportunity to create a shout out for those people that supported you and the career that you're in today. Our next topic is continuing along the care path, camper and staff mental health. You know, at camp, we already do so much for mental health. It's already built in to the camp ecosystem. Meeting new people is good for your health. Being outdoors is good for your mental health. Eating without screen time is good for your health. Trying new things is good for your mental health. And all of these things are already happening at camp. Let's hear from people that are going to talk about some other things that they're doing for their staff members and their campers in promoting mental health.
When we think about staff mental health and burnout prevention, one of the things you may laugh, but I think it's checking in individually with your staff members and asking them, what can we do to make you more effective at your job? And for me, as a seasonal naturalist, I needed a nap in the afternoon. So you'll laugh, but it's true. So the camp director, instead of having me stay in the dining room for all of lunch and announcements, lets me quickly eat first and race back to my cabin to be able to have a 30-minute power nap, and then I'm good to go. So yes, that would be a problem if every staff member needed it, but it was not a problem to let one person slip out, go get the rest, and be able to come back and be ready later. So check in with your staff and figure out what are the ways that we can accommodate and make things better one person at a time.
We have had at Pierce Williams for the past 3 summers a mental health crisis plan that we developed with a camp alumni who is a registered social worker. And what the crisis plan is to really help our staff get through when a mental health crisis happens at camp. And we've realized over those 2 summers, especially since the pandemic, because more kids and more staff members seemingly have more challenges since the pandemic, or they become more prevalent. And so now we keep a social worker on call who's friendly to us. We have an alumni who knows camp, who grew up at camp, who worked at camp, and can answer questions we have or counsel someone in the moment when it's happening. And we also work with another alumni who's doing her doctorate in psychology to continue to revamp our plans and our training and how our staff can not only provide their own self-care, but also help kids when they're at camp in a new setting. Mental health is super important, and it's not always easy to talk about, but it is something that camps need to be aware of and train on.
Regarding the mental health of our campers, we have assigned a new position on our staff called the King Pacha. And the Pacha in Mexico is like the one that cogs. And the person in charge of this position has to look over the well-being of the campers during camp. If they have been eating right, if they're feeling right, if they have taken a shower, if they're changing their clothes. So it's like having a mother view at camp of just thinking about the well-being of the campers. So they're there to hug you if you need a hug, and they're there to help you if you need any help. And this position is not in charge of rooms, is not in charge of tribes or activities. They're just supervising the well-being of campers, and that has been proven very, very beneficial.
I always say I walk the walk and talk the talk. And so what do I mean by that is there's a lot of workplaces, organizations that these days say, they do support mental health within their camp operations. That's wonderful, but how does it really look? And is it equitable? I ask these questions. Is the mental health support equitable? Is it something that everybody can tap into for them? Is it accessible pre-operations, during operations, and post-operations? And what does that look like? And when a camper or staff raises their hand or says, I need that support, what does that support look like? And very often, I have witnessed the Band-Aid effect. And what I mean is like someone is provided with hourly or a couple of days to quote unquote, get better. I'm a realist. I know that anyone that needs that support for mental health, it's not going to be that Band-Aid. It's not going to be a day or two. And so we have to provide them with that time to work through it as opposed to releasing them from their positions or adding another layer of stress or anxiety or mental health to everything that they're already challenged with. A lot of operations now have mental health practitioners involved in their day-to-day operations, which is huge and significant. But not only do they have them involved, but it's about opening up that conversation and removing the stigma. If someone were to say, I'm not feeling well, I have a headache, I need some time off, it's also okay to say, I'm not doing well today, I am having anxiety, or I'm depressed, or I need time off, and that they're not going to be judged. Within the camp operations, this is working really well for some of the camps we've had an opportunity to visit. And equally, there are those operations that are offering it on a continual 12-month calendar year, is that it's not only provided for them when they're boots on the ground at camp, because someone who leaves camp might not have access to it elsewhere, and they really look to their camp to have that support. And if they know that that support is extended past the season and the shoulder seasons, then that has been an element of advocacy on their behalf, but also an element that they have taken with them that has provided them with another reason to return to the camp operation. What are the benefits for working at camp? Everyone knows what the benefits are. But if another benefit is specifically, I look at the post-COVID world where the mental health has really significantly been impacted. If they know that there is that continual resource, that is another reason where we are hearing and learning from our camp operations that a lot of the staff are returning to, because they don't have that stigma of talking openly about mental health, but B, that they're provided with the tools and resources to support their mental health.
At Camp Winona, there are different aspects that we have put into place around providing campers and staff a safe place to recharge and a quiet place to go and recharge. We have given them access to different mental health resources if they might have a time in crisis, and invest in time and resources in staff members that might be more qualified than our typical cabin leaders to help in those situations, and have those resources outside of camp to assist them in those needs.
With mental health support, and this ties into all this anxiety that we're seeing so much in our youth and in our staff and adults, everyone in the world with the world we live in now, something that we've found, we're taking young people away from their support systems. And that's really challenging. We're saying, one of my camps is on an island. So I'm literally saying, come and live on an island for 2.5 months, potentially with a bunch of people you don't know. And so it's creating space for people to keep those connections from home. So are you in therapy? Like, let's find a way for you to have those virtual therapy sessions while you're still at camp. It's creating plans during our pre-camp training of who are your support people that you can connect with outside of camp. It goes back to the interview process where we're asking people, what are your self-care strategies? And so we're looking for things that can be applied to camp. If your self-care strategy is being alone for 10 hours, that might not work really well in an overnight camp setting where you can take 20 minutes to yourself, but then we need you to be back with your kids. So it's trying to find the supports that they have at home and being able to bring those to camp in ways that also work for our environments.
When I think about camp when I was younger, I felt that through the year when I would go to school, my battery would sort of deplete. And then when I would get to camp, that's where my battery would be charged for the rest of the year. Camp is such an important place for campers and for staff members to recharge themselves for the challenges that life is throwing at them. What are some things that all of you are doing at home, small things, to help campers and staff members with their mental health. And it could be the tiniest of things. One of the things that I heard of a camp and what they were doing is they created a library program. A lot of us at camp have books. This camp has created stations around their camp where campers can drop off a book, exchange it for another book, or just borrow a book. And they even created time for campers to go and read collectively together. Just some of these really cool programs that the camps have been doing. And when we're talking about mental health, we can't forget about connection to nature. And that's what we're going to be exploring in our next video. How are some camps helping kids, especially some kids that are not used to being in nature, to connect with nature? Because we know that that is not only an important part for a child's life, but it's also important for them to learn this so they can also care for the planet as they get older. Take a look.
Around nature connections, one of the things that I have the benefit of being part of is a camp two overnight camps that actually exist within a national park. And for a long time, we looked at that as a functional arrangement. We could be in the national park and continue to operate our camp there. And that's kind of where it ended. We filled our obligations to Parks Canada and did some work together, but minimally, and generally stayed out of each other's way, for lack of a better term. And I think this idea of partnerships has new resonance. Parks Canada has a strategy to bring more young people into its parks to experience what they're all about. And we're already there as a children's camp. Parks Canada is doing a lot of truth and reconciliation work in Canada, and that's of interest to our organization as well. So this idea of nature connections, looking for other organizations that share our desire to do meaningful work in that area, has been really helpful for us.
In our particular setting, we are a few hours out of Toronto, but we're in the woods. We have 100 acres on 2 different lakes, and a lot of our experience is about being outdoors. We're lucky enough to have a back lake on our property. So all of our campers that come for 2 weeks or come for a month, part of their experience, which is mandatory, is an overnight canoe trip. So if you asked campers to put their hands up who wanted to do that trip, I'm going to guess maybe a third would put their hand up and say, absolutely. We want to paddle out and we want to set up a tent. We want to live outdoors and cook our meals over a fire. But coming back, so many of them really appreciate being outside, seeing the stars at night, living together in a tent, being away from the main part of camp, away from a big community. So we've really built that into our program, and we've said, this is something you do when you come to our camp.
私のキャンプでは、森の中を歩いたり、それから山を登ったり、川の中を歩いたりします。で、マウンテンバイクでショートトリップをしたり、それから時には冷たい水の中に飛び込んだりします。そういう活動を通して、子供たちは、自然が豊かなことに気がついて、そして畏敬の念を持つようになります。
Nature is a huge part of what we do at camp, at least in our setting it is. And it's really, really important that campers get a sense of place in nature. I think we can all attest that that's missing in a lot of people's lives, especially in the hustle and bustle of the city life. where a lot of our kids come from, various cities, and the connection with nature is key. Canoe trips in places like Algonquin Park, where we're located in Muskoka, close to Algonquin Park. Overnight trips, simple experiences in the out of doors on the property, opportunities to connect and really see what's around, taking that time to be immersed in that. And for some, it can be a bit intimidating at first to be in the outdoors and nature, but it's an essential part of growing up. And certainly summer camp really affords that for campers and gets them reconnected or continues that connection or even fosters a real love for the out of doors moving forward in their lives.
That's so inspiring. And at my camp, I have a garden beside my cabin. And many years ago, I started placing dinosaurs, collecting mini dinosaurs and putting them in the garden. And now it's known as the dinosaur garden. And sometimes, our kids will, decorate the dinosaurs or make them look like they're in a choir, or if they're doing yard work. But one of the magics of it is all the herbs that we have and them smelling mint and rosemary and thyme, and just being that bridge for kids. One of my good friends, Shauna Joyce, her camp, Amy Molson, has a gorgeous gardening program, and it started with a very small plot of land, and now they have chickens and gorgeous vegetables, and they make pesto at the end of the summer. You can do such little things when it comes to helping campers connect with nature. What are some of your things that you like to do at camp to help you connect with nature? What are some of your favorite pastimes? Is it going for a paddle on the lake? Is it just the morning dew in the morning? Maybe it's stars at night. Please share in our chat what you enjoy when it comes to nature. When we're talking about camp and we're talking about helping kids to connect to nature, we are in the business of helping campers manage their discomfort. Some of them, it's their first time leaving home. Others, they've never slept away somewhere else, or maybe they're with new people that they've never met, or maybe they're trying food for the first time that they've never had. Camp is a wonderland of experiences, but so many different experiences can be overwhelming. Let's hear from these camp professionals on how they help campers manage their discomfort.
In this changing environment, one of the things that has become prevalent in the camp world is the acceptance of different genders, different people from different walks of life and where they're coming from. At Winona, they have made it in a way where everyone feels safe and a safe place to be able to change, whether that's a separate change room if you are in the same cabin with someone that you want to feel comfortable doing that, and giving that opportunity for that child to feel safe in every instance and every connection that they have at camp.
I think the only other thing that's of interest to, I think, all of us in camping, me in particular, but a lot of us in camping, is how to continue to bring camping to new communities who may not be experiencing it. And that can be challenging. And oftentimes that can have us rethink how some of the structures and systems that we've held dear in terms of what camp needs to look like, and opening ourselves up to the essence of camp, but how we may do it differently to appeal to those that haven't grown up in the camp traditions, or it hasn't been something that has been familiar to them, is going to be a challenge for all of us to think, what is it, the essence of camp, but what can we do around the structure of camp that can make it have more resonance to communities that haven't yet gravitated to camp or haven't had the experience around camp? That's something that we need to be very, I think, humble and open-minded. We need to do lots of listening and really continue to question ourselves of what's the true essence of camp versus what's a tradition that can evolve in order to help bring the benefits of camp to more people in new ways in the years to come that may not have had the experience of camp as kids growing up. For me, I often, in my early days, would revert back to things that I experienced, and I wanted to replicate those for other kids and bring that same experience to them. And it's a new challenge to think about what about that experience may not work for a different community that hasn't been part of this. As much as I held that dear and loved it deeply, it may or may not work for others. And what are those things, and how do we continue to evolve camp to serve an increasingly diverse population here in Canada, but I'm sure around the world in other camps? There's probably a lot to be learned for what is already taking place. And even just saying that out loud makes me think that's probably a real value proposition for ICF. In a place like Canada, where we're trying to bring camp to new populations of people that may not be experiencing it, there are lessons to be learned from camps that are operating around the world in different ways that might help us as we continue to try and evolve the work that we're doing here. I never even thought about it until I was sitting here. The example I was thinking of was we brought to a campfire at one of our camps a group of people who were staff members in charge of running services for newcomers to Canada. And our question to them was, what would we need to do here at camp to appeal to the newcomers that you're working with here in Canada? And it really varied because people were from all sorts of different countries and all sorts of different cultures. But some of the answers were really central to camp. For example, I always believe that one of the core things we do at camp is we prepare meals and eat them as a community. Or if we're doing family camp, then this is an opportunity for the family to enjoy a family-style meal with all these other families. They said one of the things that we do in our community is every celebration involves us cooking and preparing food. So if you're preparing meals for us, you're kind of taking that key thing that is central to what is in our culture away from us. I thought food service was like a core thing of camp. But the more I drill it down, it's actually not. It's the community aspect of enjoying meals together is really the central piece, not the way that they're prepared or the way that they're served. And there are many examples probably out there of people that are doing that already very differently around the world that we could experience and learn from. That's just one of numerous examples that I took from that day that really made me think about how would we put together a camp experience that felt different, but would feel like this is something that I can recognize and I can belong to and feel comfortable here. Versus the other thing I heard from that same group was, we're new to Canada and we want our kids to experience things that we think are central to this country. So I don't want you to feel like you can't do those things. We want our kids in a kayak. I want to see them in a canoe. I want them walking in that swamp over there. I want them to come back telling us about these real Canadian experiences that they had. That's why we'd send them. But at the same time, there are different ways that you can achieve those outcomes that would help people feel comfortable in making that happen. Different formats of camp that we can creatively make it more accessible.
日本人にはもともと自然と共に生きているという感覚があります。で、若い人たちはそれを忘れてしまったかのように思いますが、彼らと例えばテントの中で暮らしていて虫がいたときにスタッフが虫をそんなに驚くことなく外に出したりすると、それを見て子どもたちが慣れて、そして自分たちも同じようにするようになります。虫だじゃなくて、あ、虫ね、みたいな感じです。ずっと雨が降っている時も子どもたちは外で料理をしなくてはなりません。彼らが自分で作ったかまどで。で、そのかまどの周りでスタッフも一緒に雨に濡れながら活動する必要があります。で、私たちスタッフが実は結構多くのことをやってるんですけれども、子どもたちが自分でやらされてるんじゃなくて自分でやったっていう感じが出るようにするのがポイントです。で、そういう風にできるときはスタッフにもすごい喜びがあり。
For me, today's youth have so many fewer opportunities to be outdoors than I did as a child. And so I love being able to help them connect more with nature. I find that they are uncomfortable with things that to me were just normal. For example, sweating. I know it sounds weird, but the children aren't used to sweating these days. One technique I found this summer that worked is before we started heading out to the garden to do activities, I would say, how many of you know about nature's air conditioning? And they would look at me like, what? What are you talking about? And I said, as soon as you start sweating, your body is going to help cool yourself off because when the breeze hits you, it's going to feel cool. And they looked at me strange, but as soon as we got out in the garden and they started sweating, I would remind them, I'd say, okay, how many people's nature's air conditioning is working already? And they would raise their hands and cheer that they were sweating instead of being upset about it. In addition, with the bug bites, helping them understand how to navigate that. And it's a silly thing, but when I was a child, you take your fingernail and you make a little X on top of the bug bite. And what I was always told is that the pain receptors are stronger than the itch receptors. And so it's not a big pain, but it changes and confuses the nerve endings a little bit and makes it stop itching. So I think it's important that we think about the things that we experience and consider to be just normal parts of being outdoors and help prep and prepare today's campers and staff for how to navigate it and realize that it's not the end of the world to get a bug bite or start sweating in the heat.
My role specifically gives me a unique opportunity to shape the site into something really comfortable and just usable for the kids. It's an old site, a lot of old buildings. Things could use some maintenance and some love and care. And as the world changes and the needs of the kids and parents change, I'm hoping to help change the site with it. Having like very gender inclusive spaces and building those out would mean a lot to me as well. Making sure it's like safe and comfortable for kids, again, because cabins are 50 plus years old, bathrooms are 50 plus years old. So on a personal level, those things mean a lot to me, where I can provide safe, comfortable, clean space for them to grow and explore and learn. So that's what's next for me, and that's what I hope to do for camp.
I think it's a place where people really belong and they can feel like they belong and they're safe and they can be who they are and be themselves and are embraced by that. So it's back to community for me. I'm building people up and bringing out the best in them and having that place where you feel at home, outside of home.
Wow. And the work continues, everybody. I'd like to say we have one little extra piece, one little spotlight for all of you. Pablo's making an appearance, y'all. But before we get to that, there's some very important thank yous that I am honored to extend. I would like to thank Tom Knowlton from TC Productions, Travis Allison from Go Camp Pro, and Anna Dare's Photography. Without these three people, we would not have been able to put these wonderful videos together and truly keep it part of our archives. The professionalism and the care that these three have for the camp industry has shown in so many other projects. So to show them support, please check out their websites or get in touch with them, or just send them a little winky face to say thank you for supporting ICF Academy. This is a time where if we could go a little bit further, Travis Allison is part of the Go Camp Pro family, and part of being that part of that family is you have more than 8 different types of camp professional podcasts available to you. Not podcast episodes, but podcast streams. So if you own your own private camp, if you run a day camp, if staff training is your thing, if marketing is your thing, Kate, if we go to the next slide, you're going to see there's a QR code there, and you can check out one of 8 or all of 8 of these podcasts. I'm in one of them. Kate has also been a guest in a couple as well, and they are worth a listen. They're free, they're helpful, and they come from people that care about camp just like Travis does. And thanks for the listening, Travis. We appreciate you so much. Now, ICF Academy wouldn't be here without our members, and we're dedicated to bringing people from around the world to help kids connect with each other, and by doing so, I believe we make the world a little bit of a better place. And if you would like to sign up, we're going to show you how. We're going to send you a little link in our chat if you'd like to sign up as a membership. And guess what? You get a little free newsletter at the same time. If we can skip over to that slide, Kate, there is a wonderful cue card for you to join our newsletter. And, I don't want to steal his thunder, so I'll let Pablo talk a little bit more why an ICF membership might just be for you.
Hola, hello, bonjour, ciao, привет, ni hao, konnichiwa. I am Pablo Casas and I am membership chair, and I want to invite you to become members of ICF. We have 5 types of membership. One is for free and the others are paying members. Our affiliate membership is for those staff members that want to be part of something bigger or want to participate in our ICF Academy events. And then we have the paying memberships that have voting rights and that can be selected or voted for and become part of our board. First, we have the individual members that for $150 per 3 years, you get a certificate, the use of our logo, discounts for our International Camping Congress event, and access to all resources and the recordings of the ICF Academy. Then we have the camp or organization membership that is focused on camps that if you do run a camp, this is a must, and you have to let people know that you're part of something international and bigger. It also gives you the certificate. It also gives you the other individual membership rights, and it's only $300 per 3 years. Then we have the association membership. If you run a regional or a national association, this is a way of being part of something bigger too. And last but not least, we have our business affiliate. If you offer a service or a product that camps might be interested in, then you can be a business affiliate for ICF, and we will make sure that all our members know about your product or service. And this only costs $250 per year. So any of those that you decide to join are okay, but become a member of an ICF. It's a ride that you will enjoy, and it's worth every penny of it. So please become a member today.
Just before we wrap up and see how you can get connected with ICF, I'd also like to extend my thank yous to Kate, who did a majority of the editing of these videos, Alexia, who also contributed to those videos, Gwynn, who is our backbone support person, helper of all, Lucy, Simon, and Georgie for being a vital part of this team. And my name is Gabs, and I'm just honored to be here with you all today. I'm going to pass on the baton to my good pal, Gwynn. And once again, thank you to the ICF Academy team.
We are so excited that you joined us today, and it's always amazing to me to watch this magic happen. This episode came about as a fact that we were going to be gathering in Canada for an ICF board meeting, and we said, I wonder if we could get some video clips from our attendees and local partners there. And John Georgie said, wait, I know a guy. And so then Tom got involved, and the others that Gabs mentioned, with Anna being able to help with the videoing, and then with Travis allowing us to use the software that helped Kate do things efficiently. So my reason for saying that here with the feedback form is that if you have a cool idea, this team can make it happen. And so there'll be a link in the chat, and as soon as you close your Zoom, it'll pop up automatically to give us feedback. But this feedback is really what does make a difference, and it gives us creative ideas as we're moving forward. And I don't want to let this moment pass, but Phil Lilienthal is in the house. And Phil, if you unmute and just say hello, then it will make you come up visible for other people. But it was just announced yesterday that Phil and Global Camps Africa are the next recipient of the Druzhba Award, which is the highest award for the International Camping Fellowship. And so it's awesome that he's here, and there'll be more formal announcements made. But since you're here, I wanted to make sure that we said that. So
thanks to everybody. Please look at those carefully well-posted links from Alexia and Kate and Gwynn for you to find your place on how to connect with us. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram. Alexia's always great at sharing when our next episode will be. If you're not on WhatsApp, please join us. We have a couple of groups in English, Spanish, Russian, and Chinese. So please join us in WhatsApp so we can all connect.